Our second lesson this morning comes from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 4, verses 12 through 22. Now when Jesus heard that John had been arrested, he withdrew to Galilee. He left Nazareth and made his home in Capernaum by the lake, in the territory of Zebulun and Naphtali, so that what had been spoken through the prophet Isaiah might be fulfilled. Land of Zebulun, land of Naphtali, on the road by the sea across the Jordan, Galilee of the Gentiles. The people who sat in darkness have seen a great light, and for those who sat in the region and shadow of death, light has dawned. From that time, Jesus began to proclaim, "Repent, for the kingdom of heaven has come near." As he walked by the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, who is called Peter, and Andrew, his brother, casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. And he said to them, "Follow me, and I will make you fish for people." Immediately they left their nets and followed him. As he went from there, he saw two other brothers, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John, in the boat with their father Zebedee, mending their nets, and he called them. Immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Because I've moved around a lot in my adult life, I sometimes find it hard to answer the question, "Where are you from?" So when a friend recently asked me, "Where are you a local?" I was intrigued. He learned this question from the author Taya Selassie, a woman who's lived all over the world and who struggles to identify one particular place she considers herself to be from. To answer the question, "Where are you a local?" Selassie suggests we think about the rituals and relationships that mean the most to us. Where are the routines that organize your daily life? Where do people recognize you and call you by name? These are the places you are a local. Jesus grew up in Nazareth. It was a small rural town, and we can assume that most of his rituals and relationships were there. The one story we have of Jesus' childhood in the Gospels gives us a glimpse into another place he was a local. In this story, his parents take the family to Jerusalem for a religious festival. They are halfway back home to Nazareth when they realize Jesus isn't with them. They go back and find him in the temple, which he calls his father's house. Apparently, he felt totally at home there, all of 12 years old, interpreting the scriptures to his elders. So it's a little surprising that when it comes time for Jesus to begin his public ministry, to preach, teach, heal, and choose his followers, he doesn't go back to Nazareth. He doesn't go to Jerusalem and the temple. Instead, he goes off to a far-flung town on the northern coast of the Sea of Galilee, Capernaum. Before Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans, the staff of Memorial Medical Center thought they were prepared to ride out the storm. They had transferred the sickest patients to other hospitals, so when the hurricane hit, there were only about 115 patients left. The building sustained some damage during the storm and lost power, but once the wind and rain subsided, the staff breathed a sigh of relief. It looked like they were going to be okay. Then the floodwaters started rising. The hospital was being powered by generators, but when the waters rose, the generators failed. Without air conditioning, the heat inside the hospital was nearly unbearable. Early on, after the flooding, rescue helicopters came to the roof, and the senior staff decided that the patients most at risk from the heat should go first: premature babies, pregnant mothers, the critically ill patients in the ICU. The real problem was deciding which patients should go next, especially when hours and days passed and the helicopters didn't return. As they waited with no plan available to guide them, the doctors and nurses had to make decisions that would determine which patients lived and which ones died. The decision Jesus made to start his ministry in Capernaum may seem trivial, but it turns out to be a life-changing decision for the first disciples. For some of them, even a life or death decision. So how did Jesus decide to start in Capernaum and call 4 young fishermen to be his first followers? Jesus doesn't go to Nazareth, where he feels at home and where people know him. He doesn't go to Jerusalem, the religious center of Judaism, and call those who've spent a lifetime studying the scriptures that prophesy his coming. He goes to Capernaum, and there he reaches out not to the town's leaders, not to the ones who hold wealth and power, not to the intellectuals, but to a few fishermen who've been brought up in the family business. "Follow me," he tells them, "and I will make you fish for people." Unlikely people from an unlikely place. This is how God makes disciples. Years ago, Sam Wells received a visit from a man he barely knew, the CEO of a prominent corporation in the town where Wells was a pastor. Wells had met the man a few times before and noticed that he always looked just a little disheveled in spite of his responsibilities and accomplishments. The day he dropped by, he sat in a corner of Wells' study, chewing his fingernails and holding rather nervously a homemade cassette tape. Anybody remember those? Wells says, "I guessed that small talk wasn't what my visitor had come for." He finally spoke. "I've come to see you because there is no one else I can tell. I've decided I want to be a Christian. In my world, that's like saying I'm crazy. Last night, I got up in the early hours and I made this tape. It says what I want to say, and I want to leave it with you because there's no one else I can give it to." And he handed over the tape. For that man, handing over that tape was as momentous as Peter and Andrew setting down their fishing nets, and James and John walking away from their father's boat without a backward glance after Jesus says simply, "Follow me, and I will make you fish for people." There's a lot of speculation about what could have made these first disciples drop everything to follow Jesus. After all, he hasn't done anything remarkable yet. Some say he must have had incredible charisma, that he was the kind of person you just wanted to be close to. Maybe. Others say these guys had just been waiting for an opportunity to get out of Capernaum, to do something different. They were ready to see the world, and Jesus offers them the chance. Maybe. But could it be with these few words of invitation, Jesus shows that he knows these guys? He knows who they are and what they are capable of, and he has a plan to take that and transform it into something spectacular, not just for them, but for others as well. "I will make you fish for people." Jesus is going to use all the skills these fishermen have learned on the sea, patience, discernment, observation, respect for nature, and put them to work transforming the world. This is what God does. This is who God is. God goes to the most ordinary places and finds the most ordinary people and uses the hard-earned skills we have to transform the world. For some, these skills are earned in years of education and hard work. For others, they're earned through experiences of unimaginable suffering and hardship. But as Richard Rohr likes to say, God doesn't waste anything, not 1 second of our lives. All of your life is part of your life with God, your salvation history, your journey of discipleship. Nothing is wasted. Everything Even the things you think of as your most colossal failures or your deepest regrets, everything is something God can and will use. God calls every one of us, no matter how ordinary or unqualified we think we might be. Our job is to decide how to answer God's invitation. Tom Toole tells the story of a wealthy corporate executive named Jack that Toole knew when he was serving as a pastor in New York City. Jack and his wife raised 3 children, had them going to worship and Sunday school nearly every week. They were confirmed in 8th grade, and like the kids we're hearing from today, they went on mission trips in the summer. Their middle daughter, Anna, left New York City to go to college in Atlanta, and she found another church to attend there. One day during her sophomore year, a speaker came to the church to report on his work at an orphanage in a part of Africa ravaged by civil war. At the end of the talk, the speaker said, almost in passing, that he needed support for his ministry, not just financial donations, but people who would come and work with him at the orphanage for a week or a month or a year. Anna called her parents after the talk. She was talking a mile a minute, trying to explain to them how amazing this was and how she wanted to get involved. They listened appreciatively. Yes, that sounds wonderful. Sure, we'll make a donation. And they did, a sizable one. But a few days later, Anna called them back, and she was still on fire about what she'd heard. Mom, Dad, she said, I think I need to go to Africa. That sounds dangerous, they replied. Can we just make another donation? But Anna was determined. She had to be there to see for herself, to learn from the people, and to serve the children of this orphanage. Okay, fine, they finally relented. Why don't you make arrangements to go this summer for a week or 2? No. She said, I don't want to just dip my toe in. I want to be part of this work. This is what God is calling me to do. As soon as the spring semester is over, I want to go for a year, at least. It took a while for Jack and his wife to come around, but as much as they worried about Anna's safety, they could not help but be moved by her sense of call. Finally, they stopped trying to convince her and helped her make arrangements to go. They secretly hoped she might change her mind, but she didn't. And in June, they put her on a plane. When Jack told the story later to his pastor, he had tears in his eyes. I just can't believe she's doing this, he kept saying. You know, we raised our daughter to be a respectable Christian. We just didn't really want her to be a real one. When it came time for Jesus to start his ministry, he made a decision that shaped the rest of his life, where he would go, and whom he would invite to join him. The first disciples had a decision to make too. Would they turn from everything that was safe and familiar and venture into the unknown with Jesus? Not just once, and not just today, but over and over again, God invites us to make the same decision. To follow Jesus requires us to hold lightly all the things we hold dear. The comforts of our relationship, our knowledge and skills and stuff, and open ourselves to being transformed and to join the work of transforming the world. I know I am not the only one here today who is heartbroken and angry and overwhelmed yet again by the suffering and division all around us, by the humanitarian aid convoy in Syria obliterated by bombs before it ever reached Aleppo, by more names added to the list of lives ended and ruined in the divide between Black citizens trying to live their lives and police officers trying to do their jobs in a climate of paranoia and fear, by the young people in this country who despair that the choice of leaders before them in this election makes them want to make no choice at all. Well, we have a choice of what we do with our despair and our anger and fear. We can stay where we are locals in the safe confines of our Nazareth where people know us and we know our place, or in our Jerusalem, our religious centers where the rituals of our faith comfort us. But Jesus is calling us to Capernaum, the place we've never been before, with people we don't know, so that we can see ourselves and our calling anew. In the song Same as It Ever Was, created in response to the killings of Michael Brown and Tamir Rice, Michael Franti sings, "It's the same as it ever was, but there's got to be a better way. Same as it ever was, but today is a different day. You and me can make that change. Same as it ever was. Better start today." Jesus knows how hard all of this is, how broken we are, how our world is broken too. His choice to go to Capernaum reminds us that we are invited away from what we know. God needs us, our hard-earned skills and knowledge, so that God's love and God's invitation can reach every broken and breaking place. After that CEO left Sam Wells' study that day, Wells found himself with a cassette in his hand. He put it in the tape player and pressed play. He heard the sound of the CEO clearing his throat, and then a long silence. Then he cleared his throat again, and to Wells' astonishment, this proud and accomplished man began to sing a simple song. I have decided to follow Jesus. I have decided to follow Jesus. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back. No turning back.